Good evening. Welcome to this podcast of Radio Conscience and Truth is Here on this Wednesday, March 28, 2012. Tonight we have a second talk with Dr. Mike Castle, and the subject is radionics. So it promises to be very, very interesting. So, hello, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I gotta unplug some things here. Oh, good afternoon, Jean-Francois.
Hello. So, how have you been, Mike? It's been about a week since the last interview, and we did discuss recently that it would be nice to have another show, and the topic would be radionics. So. Here we are.
Well, here we are. You know, there's a lot of people that'll listen to your podcast, and they still won't know exactly what we're trying to describe. So let me take a minute and try to suffer through some of these lead-ins by the, let's just say, by the teasing of the word radionics, right? Mm-hmm. Radionics. It's a very old word. Used to be quite common here in the United States around 1919, 1920, up through that era there, you know, just after the Wright brothers in the 1902, the plane. A lot of guys started working with things like all of these, but it was just across the globe. It wasn't just here in the United States. Over in France, there were some people that were working with something that that they in fact call radionics, but in French, I'm not certain how that word would be pronounced.
Radionique in French.
A what?
Radionique in French.
Thank you.
No problem.
Well, they brought that over here, and it was imported into the United States, but nobody picked it up until there was a person by the name of Drown, D-R-O-W-N, relative to the San Francisco area of the U.S., and this was picked up quite readily by a few, and guess what they started out doing? They started out seeing what type of healing capabilities that this had, because they were kind of led on that path. All right. Radionics is such a vast sphere of knowledge and methods. And see, I'm the one that's promoting the methodology of that old ancient word, methodology, and I wouldn't give you 1 red cent for the word technology. That is your enemy. Technology is now your enemy. Combine that with something called psychotronics, and you've got every one of these weapons that are poised, raining upon us every day in the form of chemtrails, all sorts of waveform, including mesmeric, ultra-low frequency, and extreme low frequency waveform coming from satellites, HARP, from the Gwen Towers, ground wave energy network, and you have been told those are cell towers? That got nothing to do with your cell phone. Those are not duplex units for your cell phone. Those are strictly towers to broadcast certain message systems, but they're there just in case we ever have emergency, you know. Right, yeah. You see how much coin they put on that kind of stuff? And that all came out of your local pocket, by the way. But these Gwen Towers, in fact, have this nasty little devices on board in that triangular shaped antenna, and they're designed to do one thing, and that's to cast a mesmeric wave. And that's now called HD wave, high definition. That's not really what it means. It's hell's dimension. And it puts on this show in your mind. You don't know what's going on, okay? Now, that's not radionics. But what it's doing, it's mesmerizing you, constantly bombarding your mind with what they call affirmations. The affirmations, in fact, will change your mind. They can do all sorts of techniques with this. If somebody, they can be programmed 24/7 and they don't know anything's going on, like they do the Sam Rayburn building, constantly, that if anyone, they can train your brain that if anyone uses the word chemtrails in front of you or to you or in writing, you're supposed to run. Act like you have, look up at the sky, look up at the ceiling, roll your eyes and turn around and walk away. That's what they've been trained to do. This is what these things are. They're training universes. And they do it all the time. Take the banker bailout bill, for one, or any of the number of malfeasance bills that have occurred in the last just year and a half, 2 years. Okay, but what's radionics now? We're going to kind of lose track. I do sometimes go those directions to the tangential, the tangent.
Yes. I've done a bit of research on it before we started this podcast. I noticed that first and foremost it was used for medical purposes. It was some sort of an alternative way to heal people. But what interested me in the last talk we had was the weather could be modified. You spoke of bringing warm weather. So that really blew my mind.
Okay. This is not a modification. It's not a manipulation. It's actually a restoration. It restores the normal climatic weather patterns, the moisture patterns. You can draw wet, moist air your way, and it can be in the dead of winter. And I've done that many years, standing out on my back porch over in Columbus, where I used to live. And just by developing this technique, you don't have to advertise it, don't tell anybody, but just outstretch your hands in the direction that you want the warmer weather to come from, like the Gulf of Mexico. Now, if I'm in Ohio, you in fact want warm weather to pull. You can pull this just using natural magnetic energy. So if you've got a pendant on, or if you've got some magnetite with a crystal stuck on it that's got a helical wound right-handed coil, that's all you need, and you set that somewhere around you, you're going to be in that vortex. You're going to be in that vortex of magnetic energy, and all you have to do is will that warmer air to come your way. Within 2 days, you'll have what you ask for. And we've done it time after time. There's been people overseas that have done this. It is just kind of a virtuoso of information, and it's like you just stumbled upon it. Wow, that's really... Tornadoes? No, we've neutralized tornadoes as far away as almost 100 miles west. Yeah. We can do that, and we've seen it on live Titan radar. We watch radar all the time, watching these big holes form around the areas where we live, because mesocyclonic electromagnetic weather, this is not natural weather. Mm-hmm. The mesocyclonic, in fact, is a left spin, just like the water goes down the drain in the northern hemisphere. And what direction does it go in the southern hemisphere is not important at this point. The only thing I know is the left spin, in fact, is used characteristically in electromagnetism. Again, the separation and the divide of our discussion here today is I will only talk about magnetism that is natural. Hey, there's a concept. You ever heard of natural magnetic energy? Every time someone does that, invariably, some professor-looking person will say, well, you mean electromagnetism, don't you? No, but they've embedded that into our mind that that is the only type of energy that is surrounding this earth. And it is not electromagnetic. It is natural magnetic.
Okay, so by this you mean that the earth doesn't have an electromagnetic field that is produced naturally. It's man-made.
Well, it's man-made. At the same time, there are charged particles that comes in from the sun during the CMEs that, in fact, will form an electrosphere around it, and it does, in fact, go to the anode and the cathodic, the plus and the minus. That is true. But these lines are very linear. They're very straight. They're very uniform. And, of course, iron particles line up in them very like whiskers and very jagged and, like Etch-a-Sketch. Mm-hmm. It's based on that. But these lines, in fact, line up very, very straight, very linear. Natural magnetic energy ain't got nothing to do with that. As a matter of fact, natural magnetic vortices have a right elliptical orbit. And it's necessary to understand nature is not sloppy. It's perfectly symmetrical. But at the same time, it takes a lazy orbit, not a tight electromagnetically induced spin. This is a lazy, these are massive vortexes that are coming out of these pendants. And that's the only thing that I did come across is taking the auric energy from the magnetite black sand, which was embedded with the Earth's natural magnetic field back before there were dinosaurs. Way back before there were dinosaurs, by some rock and or eating bacterium. And they would excrete this pellet. This pellet was now an iron crystal. And that iron crystallite, in fact, is what we see today as magnetite, black sands magnetite.
And that was Fe something, Fe, you mentioned
Fe3O4.
Fe3O4, yes, you mentioned that last week. And it's
and that's the same composition that lodestone has. Mm-hmm. So how ever you can, in fact, imagine something that generates, it has a natural aura, which will never, ever go away, of magnetic energy. The Earth's magnetic energy is embedded, encased in that iron crystal forever. So it's got all this surface area. See, everything works in the particle universe based on the surface area. Now, with all of this gajillions of surface area phenomena, it radiates a very, very large Oort cloud. But it's not radioactive. But the Oort cloud that is surrounding the magnetite, a pile of magnetite, goes into everything. Matter of fact, you can stick a bottle of distilled water on top of magnetite black sands for 3 days, and it will impart the charge, the magnetism, into the water. Without putting the magnetite in the water, you just put it on top of it. So through the containers and everything, this will impart this same radiant energy, if you will. Mm-hmm. And those are deep, very deep carbonaceous atoms that, in fact, bond this water molecule together. And it makes the water slightly heavier. Okay, again, digressing, going off on a different track, but most people want to know these little side points because, man, that's cool, but it will. The magnetic water will completely restructure your cellular tissue in such a way it will protect you.
So that could be used as a way to heal somebody, I guess.
Well, again, you are frowned upon if you dare use that word.
or to, you know, to help someone who has a problem.
Well, but it doesn't, in fact, get you in trouble if you say you can reverse something, does it?
No.
Okay.
You're
So
right.
we're reversing, and by doing that, by drinking the natural magnetic water, you're also putting a little bit of ormus, which is a gift of the magnetized water.
Mm-hmm.
It imparts it in situ, in a orbitally rearranged monatomic element into the water. And again, the magnetite does not go into the water. It does this based on an aether. It's etheric. This etheric, in fact, puts it into the water column. But you don't know it's there. But you can determine that it's there, such as Dr. John Malusky has many, many times. You can do it by magnetizing the water for 3 days and making some ice cubes. Tell me that those aren't frosty looking. The frosty looking is coming from the ormus in the water. If I tell you, it works. Okay, now, what about radionics? How does this have to do with anything? I've taught myself so many techniques by researching and researching and researching and researching, and I've got a very, very good purview on what the Indian tribes, how they done things. Yeah, there was some planning, but it wasn't anything that you would akin today. I mean, they done things based on what someone at some time in their early young life told them to do. And they were trained throughout their life to be the rain dancer, to be the medicine man. These were specially gifted people who were told by somebody of a hierarchy about how you do these. And they were all just methods. They weren't mixtures. They were just methods, like stacking a certain kind of rock on top of another. This at the base. We get that over at places like Ringing Rocks, Pennsylvania, over at the nature park over there. Ringing Rocks, you strike them with a hammer and they ring and they ring and they ring and they ring. They're lodestone with the essence of Fe3O4. So if you got a ringing rock, which is the magnetite, and it has all that auric energy coming from it, they were told to stack good crystal flint, some of your best flint right on top of it. And then we get that over southeast of Zanesville at the Great Flint Ridge, which the Hopewell Indians, in fact, maintained that. They never owned anything. None of these entities owned anything. They all got along. You know, they didn't kill each other, but they maintained it for eons. They maintained it. But the rain dancers, the tribals, were told how to stack these rocks, and they did at the mounds. The Hopewell were the mound builders of ancient history as far as this area. In a time where, Jean-Francois, the forests were so massive. They stretched all the way up from the plain of Quebec and all the way down through the Carolinas and the Smokies and everything, all the way down to where you now have a line of demarcation at what, Valdosta, Georgia? Then you go into the tropical side of it. But see, those were all, and the Seminole were were everywhere, by the way. Once you start studying Indians, not Native Americans, Indians. So these Indians, in fact, walked all of these forests, and they depended upon the methods that they were taught to always have an abundant harvest, to have good fishing, to have good game, all kinds of vegetables and things that they grow to eat, and they had abundance. All the rain dancer had to do was not go out and stomp around and yell. He knew the harmonics in his voice had a lot to do with the higher frequency. Now, he didn't know that. I'm just explaining it. The harmonics of a higher frequency, of a higher chakra. The stomping was done very meticulously with the feet, with probably elk skin moccasins on or something, and he could get a rhythm going but it was the sound that he made, and that was all extreme low frequency. The same thing as a thud. Okay? Those were the harmonic waveforms that were the most energizing to the magnetic vortices. They work on sound. They're acoustic. I haven't told you anything to say yet, except to say a simple prayer when you're working with this stuff. That's all you got to do.
So these vortices are the key, I guess.
Demar.
Those vortices are the key to...
They're the key, exactly.
Okay.
They're the key. They're the key.
But there is a some sort of a, not a ceremonial, but there's a plan or a certain things you must accomplish in order to manifest. Like you were talking about will. So they use that, but in a certain fashion, in a certain manner.
Yes, and they were taught how to do that.
Okay.
And throughout their entire life, they worked to do that. And then they become the great, like Tenskwata. Tenskwata was Tecumseh's brother, who was also called the prophet of his time. This was over in eastern Illinois and all through the Illinois, and the travels that these people had just still amaze me to this day. But I've been to a number of these places, and I studied them from what's available on the internet, and believe me, it's not all there. What I'm telling you is not there. Because this is something that was obfuscated, something that was, they're just ruthless savages, kill them all, make them dumb, put them in school so they forget this crap, this hocus pocus stuff. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay.
Yeah, and I've read horror stories about the shamans in the U.S. that were exterminated. So
exactly. That's what they're trying to do yet today, because they consider individuals like you and me, because we have this premier knowledge here. And, of course, they're listening right now. Hey, all I got to say is, guys, bless your hearts and have a nice day. And you don't have any souls. But I already know that. But, see, harmonics is something that we don't understand completely, do we? We understand harmonics based on pitch and waveform, and let's just say being able to sing a duet, with good structured harmonics here at this octave and down here at this octave. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. You don't have to invent anything, but just use your own natural voice. And if you're trying to pull warmer weather, or let's just say you're really, a drought's got you by the butt. I mean to tell you. It's got, like they did Texas last year. They killed them down there. All you have to do is start pulling from somewhere where there's wet, moist air, and it is susceptible to traveling across the surface or at a very low altitude. Once you can do that, you can pull it from the east if you live in West Texas. You can pull it from the east off the Gulf of Mexico and put that wet, damp, moist air up and in around Houston and everything. You can have yourself just a good little rain shower. I'm telling you. It's really going to get your pole beans going. I'm telling you. See,
from east to west is very rare. Usually it's the other way around. Yes.
See, when you're working with natural magnetic energy, it doesn't have a directional. These are magnepoles. They don't have a north and a south. They're magnepoles. And yes, I know how that works. There's one elliptical right spin vortex on the exterior. On the interior, there's a very tighter spin left vortice. It's counter-rotating to the one outside of it. It operates exactly like a galaxy does. It works identical to a galaxy.
Fascinating.
Now, think about that a while. And see, these are magnepoles. Now, what these natural magnetic energy things do, I used to call them rain sticks.
Okay.
And I still do. I got drawings, and I call them rain sticks.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing, they're putting this natural magnetic vortex into the atmosphere above you. And they're huge. They're massive. Just something coming off of these pendants can be 30 foot in diameter. Just an elliptically orbiting vortex. But you can't see it. But if you've got meters, you can detect it being there. Because remember, people, you're standing in a natural magnetic field to begin with. It's just that you're powering up, because Tesla said anytime you put energy through a quartz crystal that has a helical coil on it, or a Mobius coil, he called it, that accelerates energy and puts a spin to it. It puts a thrust in it, acceleration, and a spin. I don't know how it does all that. I don't need to know how it does. I just know that it does. And that was my original concept, to have these ends of these crystals, just pieces of crystals, erupt in these very beautiful, large, right spin magnetic vortices. Now we know that there's one that also clabbers down through the center. That's why it's a magnet pole. It's all there, but it's in two different places. Well, that makes sense too. But that's exactly how a galaxy works. Now, if you're wanting to pull warm weather in, all you have to do is will it.
In a natural voice.
That's in a natural voice. Just use your voice. Say a simple prayer to yourself. You don't need to say it out loud. You can just say hallelujah. Whatever you like to phrase it. However pleased that you are that your prayer has been answered, but you're participating in it. See, do you know what a miracle looks like? I don't. I don't think I've ever seen one. But I'll ask you a serious question. Do you know what a miracle looks like? So if all of a sudden you're working with this and you're going to get some good weather, or you diverted some NOAA bowling with tornadoes system coming through, and there's going to be a bunch of them this year too. National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, in fact, is going to, if you live in a small village or a hamlet outside of a larger metropolitan area, they're going to nail you. They're going to tear your house down. They're going to suck everything up in a tornado, probably F4. F4 a little bit, and they spin these angry tornadoes, but see, they're all electromagnetically driven from above. This is HARPS doing this in unison with the Gwen Towers. The Gwen Towers are Ground Wave Energy Network. I contend that stands for Greater Weather Engineering Network. In other words, they're in fact using these massive towers to pump out kajillions, kilojoules of wattage in microwave amperage. Microwave. But they've got it aimed a little bit, let's just say, towards the horizon. Like a radar. That's just like a radar. Okay. Yeah, but these things are kicked on just at the right time to push and pulse an entire river of water to get it to explode with heat and take off into a certain direction and create wind energy like you've never seen wind energy. They create all this garbage. There are no natural weather patterns left on this earth, people. I'm very sorry to tell you that. I wrote The Methodic Demise of Natural Earth back in 2003. I didn't put that in there, but I wished I had have. I got very close to describing natural weather is based on Coriolis forces. Coriolis forces, in fact, I'm a pilot. That's one of the first things that you had to learn. Everything that you were going to fly through was created by that ball sun. And so does Coriolis forces. Have a lot to do with the electron particles being blown at the Earth and what enters the Earth, and this electrodynamics, if you will. In this case here, though, the electromagnetic, in fact, can be completely neutralized because it's a plus system. It has an electron. That's why, you know, man has something to do with it, because it's called electromagnetic. Man has something to do with generating that. It just didn't happen.
If I follow, if I follow what you're saying, is it possible that Hurricane Katrina was steered by these systems you're talking about to
It
hit?
was more than just possible that happened. It did happen.
Okay, but did they create?
Somebody photographed.
Did they create the hurricane to start with?
Yes, they did.
And they stirred it.
If you remember,
right
that
up.
just kind of lumbered up around the west coast of Florida and then went straight across there and just like bowling, man, just hit the kingpin. And they, in fact, thundered up that storm and had a 40-foot wash coming from that thing, surge just as it came on the land, took out all those millions of gallons storage vessels that were storing oil and all that stuff, and they just, in fact, just dumped this on New Orleans. Somebody got a photograph of lightning bolts at the top of the hurricane shield. You don't have lightning bolts at the top of hurricanes, people. I don't care what your American meteorological certified person may have told you. He's full of crap. And you can tell him I said that. You don't have lightning bolts emanating from the top of a hurricane. Somebody got a photograph of it in the year that happened, just before it came on shore. That's more than evidence-free that NOAA had a lot, and NASA had a lot to do with this. And if you doubt what I'm saying about NASA, boy, I don't know if there's any hope for you or not. These people are all different than you and me.
I hope the people are responsible for this atrocity, because I would call it an atrocity. I hope they get prosecuted and thrown in jail, and that we, throw away the keys. It's like, it's insane. It's totally insane.
Well, when we used to encounter a great big old black, old ugly snake out in the garden or something, what's the first thing you go after? Either a shovel or a hoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cut their heads off.
Ooh.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you don't go to jail, I'm still going to be looking around for a hoe or a shovel. Because you people are not like me. You're not of my species. You're different. You're of a reptilian sect. And if you didn't know that, well, check the underarm of your armpit, and you'll see that you've got scales there, too. But they don't think like we do. They have no soul. But let's go on. Let's graduate out of this, who's doing what to us, into a dimension where we learn something. Okay, you can learn just by going through a methodology that somebody else taught themselves and then checked out with what all these other ancients were doing, and it all fits. It all absolutely fits. If you construct one of these apertures, the aperture's on my website. It's a very simple aperture, and yes, the eventuality is we're going to offer that for sale as a kit, because there's some people that got more money than they got time, and they would just like to buy one. Okay, we'll ship that to you. It's not going to be ultra expensive. Might be for a lot of people, but around $150 plus the shipping cost. So see, that's not out of line at all with getting what we need for reimbursement of costs and things of that nature. But these are very simple things. And as I've said many times on your last show, you can take a plastic bucket full of magnetite, or a couple pounds in it, take the biggest crystal you got, and just take a piece of copper wire and wind it to the right, ascending. Right ascending is a clockwise spiral. Stick it in the top of that magnetite. There you go. Put it in the corner of the house that's got a tree as close to it as you can get. Yeah, they do. They work with trees. Live wood amplifies this energy, people. Live wood. It takes it up in the branches and the arms, and it takes it into the root system. There's a vortex that goes down, and there's a vortex that goes up. They're both right spin. If you look down, it's counter-rotating to where you're at. But if you go down there and look up, it's spinning the same direction as your right spin. See, don't get lost in that. Some people are like, oh, wait a minute, it all depends on where I'm standing and stuff. No, you don't get hung up. Just know that it needs to be right turn ascending. That's the only thing you need to know. And it's elliptical, not tight.
So that tree, the bigger the tree, the bigger the vortices, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mabel, they're in my backyard here in Columbus.
Oh, yes, I remember Mabel.
3.5 foot girth. I mean, you got to look at her from the satellite one day, from Google Satellite or something.
Yes. I sure did.
She's got to be 7,500 years old, 3.5 foot girth, and I even tapped her. The fourth year I was there, I tapped her. I got 35 gallons of sap from her. Man, she just gave and gave and gave, and I boiled it all down and made maple syrup on my barbecue grill. Took a whole tank of gas, but what the heck. I made maple syrup out of it. Delicious maple syrup. That's the first time that tree has ever been tapped for maple syrup. But that's what she was put on this earth to do, is to make sap and shade. Well, see, Mabel, she articulated this magnetic form so majestically. She's the biggest tree in the neighborhood. And she's even gotten bigger recently. But she carried this massive, huge vortex above her. You could see that on live Titan radar at certain times of the year or during certain weather events. You could actually see this hole right over our house. And so did a lot of other people.
And how large was that hole? About a few miles?
About a few miles. Yeah, you can see it on the satellite from a very high distance. Yes, yeah, from high altitude. Yes, you could.
You must have.
Well, see, nobody knew I was doing this. Nobody knows about this.
Yeah, but some of the people there in the quote unquote military industrial complex, they must have been wondering what the hell was going on.
Oh, I guarantee you, there's been more than one Air Force Battelle equipped chopper trying to pinpoint just where this massive signal is coming from. You see, it's not a signal, it's a vortex. And you can't pick up a vortex with a locator because it's not a waveform. It's a vortex. It's a mass. It's an energy without a mass. It's an energy without a mass. So with that in mind, this also goes down in the root system. And it goes down into the rock and the substratum. And when you do that, you create something in the rock and deep geology, the bedrock. Even in fault zones, you're going to increase the magnetic cohesion of that rock. So when they throw a scalar wave at you from a submarine or from some outpost underground, which there are many, and they got these things that's throwing out this longitudinal scalar wave, and it's all ELF with a sideband carrier, and it just rocks the world when it hits. They, in fact, took Haiti out without taking the Dominican Republic out. It's the same island, guys. And the great big deep trench on the south side of the island is perfectly aligned so that a submarine could go down there with the right weaponry on board, and they could sink below and fire right into that substratum. And I believe that's exactly what was done. That huge, massive, deep trench on the south side of the island was used as the post or portal to launch a scalar weapons against Haiti, which killed almost upward to 300,000 people. And the rest of the world knows that they're doing this, and it is our Gov, it is our Navy, it is federally approved contractors, it's things like Blackwater, it's these minions, these people that don't appear to be caring about humans whatsoever, and I contend they're not humans. They're not. They can't be. How many times did I hear Jeff Wren say that? They can't be human. No, they're not. They're not human. They are more of the reptilian sect or serpentine, the snake. That piece of crap in the White House is of the serpentine. He's of a snake. And that's not real anyways. Those are clones.
I'd like to go back a little bit. You mentioned without a mass. So when a field, a natural magnetic field, amplified and everything, has no mass,
right?
How can a field without mass deflect any of these ELFs and scalar produced? What's the physics behind that?
It is ground energy. It's minus minus.
Okay. So
when it encounters a plus minus wave, such as electromagnetic or scalar, it will in fact deflect all of the microwave. And in fact, because it's so extreme low, it's below 32 hertz. So it's so low frequency, and it's ground energy. And anytime ground energy occupies the same space as a plus energy, ground energy trumps it every single time. Ground energy is the primordial energy of this planet. That's why Einstein avoided it, because it's a primal energy.
So if I'm to follow your logic here, let's say we'd have, I'm just going to put a rough figure here. Let's say we'd have 10 million apertures in the United States.
Don't need that.
But the magnetic fields that they produce wouldn't have any effects, right?
Exactly. You can put up a natural magnetic vortice. Let's just say 5 in a neighborhood. Let's just say an area, a metropolitan city. You can put five people in and around that city, put up these apertures. Just do that. Yeah, get it close to a tree if you like. Doesn't make any difference. These magnetic vortices are so massive, they go all the way up and out through the atmosphere. Okay, I'll get back to that. I want to get back to that. But the point is, you can form a domain right in your airspace, and scalar and electromagnetic waveform entering that area
are going to bounce off.
Going to be neutralized. Just as DOR, as Wilhelm Reich explained, DOR is bad energy, bad plus electromagnetic energy.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it doesn't neutralize these ELFs or scalar waves or whatever they're called, but it bounces them off, or does it exactly?
It does neutralize. It is a undefinable process of where acoustics and extreme low frequency, which is not audible, so we don't know what it sounds like, but that tone is what floods the entire spectrum with a noise that breaks up all of their structure, whatever their waveform is. Microwave, extreme low frequency, very high frequency, whatever the forms are, microwave, standard standing wave, whatever the waveform may be, this in fact can push it away. It doesn't stop it, okay?
Hey,
it doesn't completely stop the waveform. It just breaks up its spatial characteristic, and it's a spatial characteristic that causes the electromagnetic frequency that does harm to us and all other living things. It's that spatial energy that does that. So a spatial electromagnetic waveform, if you live somewhere close to a transmission line, with gajillions of volts going through it, hundreds of thousands of volts going, you're going to pick up that spatial form, and it's going to give you cancer, and you will die very quickly from a disease called leukemia. Mm-hmm. So the same thing is true in all these things, and it's no mystical science to pick up these things, but it's just that natural magnetic energy will protect you from all this spatial waveform. As I keep explaining, what's coming from your computer screen, what's coming from your TV, all these are mesmeric waveforms. They change your mind, and you don't even know they're working on you. But see, once they got that target, which is the hippocampus region or the front of your brain, they can do just about darn anything just by shooting in positive affirmations that do things to you, and you can't figure them out because they're all going to the subconscious sector of your brain. Subconsciousness is picking this up. You're not the cognitive, the conscious. It's the subconscious that's picking these up. And all of a sudden you've got this overwhelming desire, a craving like you wouldn't believe, to go get a Skyline chili or a pizza. And it's Friday night, people. That's called marketing today. This is how they do it. They flood your entire brain with affirmations of craving something. And they have their ways of dueling the TV set and the commercials that they pay $1 gajillion to do with that little thing that's there. It's right there. It's right there. Then all of a sudden, you're touched upon by that TV commercial which shows Skyline chili tonight. Hey, or a pizza. Hey, Donato's pizza, or whatever kind of pizza you like. I do like Skyline chili, though. but it crystallizes that thing that you were looking for that you didn't really know you were pursuing. See how it works? That's how all this stuff works. It's called psychotronics. It's exactly what the Grant Demons wrote himself.
So radionics is the answer to combat these.
It is. It is. Just using it in unison with, not conjunction, in unison with natural magnetic forces.
Yeah.
But see, you can transfer, and if you read that about healing, and that's where this Miss Drown comes in, she was particularly interested in being able to heal someone who was in a different country. Did you read that?
Yes, I did.
How did that? Wait a minute. How can they do that? I know Dr. Bruce Tanio could clean up an entire river basin in China that had all this horrible contamination in it from his facility right there in Tacoma, Washington. From his laboratory, he could clean up somewhere in China just by thinking about it. But it's how he done that that was the most amazing. He told me some of these things. One of the most fascinating men I ever met in my life. I kid you not. Dr. Bruce Tanio, and Clean Water Systems, or CWS, Coherent Water Systems is what he's called it. These are brilliant people, and Bruce Tanio was at the top level of being brilliant, but still he was born and birthed in natural, organic, raising everything from minerals and the mineralization of things. It just went on and on and on. And when I met this guy, I'm just thinking how unique it was that my pathways were the pathways that he chose to go down too. And I was looking at these trails, and he was explaining things to me. I had a wonderful time visiting this man. That's the first time in my life I've actually visited somebody that I absolutely honored and admired because of what he was able to do in his life. But it's not well known. Dr. Bruce Tanio. Well, look him up, people. You'll find out that there's somebody here that was unannounced, but they had knowledge. See, they had knowledge, and just because somebody couldn't steal his knowledge, patent his device, and make a lot of money off of it, they didn't want to mess with it. It was natural. It was just a natural methodology. He can take one of his, he calls them machines, but they're run by satellite.
So in other words, you can't patent these things, right? It's like natural energy, natural magnetic energy you can't put a patent on that.
You can't put a patent on something that develops oxygen in the water either, can you? Because oxygen occurs in water anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But this can get the soluble level up of oxygen, O2, 17. I was amazed. I said, man, I wouldn't want to hold a match real close to that water. But, I mean, it's just some of the most brilliant things that he's done for the Department of Land Management and all those agencies and stuff, with some of the brine pits and the mining trash and tailings and stuff like that. I don't know where he's at today, but the man's brilliant. He's as brilliant as Dr. Joey Puello. And yes, Dr. Joey Puello was the man who read some of the stuff that I had been working on for years and years and years with sustainability. And I called my first company, actually my second company. My first company was Castle Concepts Consultants. And then I, in fact, board another one, which I call Sustainable Technologies Corporation, located in Lewisburg, Ohio. And we made all kinds of stuff like pseudo soil. I had developed this stuff called Macrex, was a pseudo wood. Yeah, these things all are real, and no, I didn't want to patent them. I've done my patents all through the years as a polymer chemist and product engineer and all that kind of stuff, and coatings. But I gravitated away from that because that's all manned by the lizard people. These are all snakes and lizard people that hang out there. I want nothing to do with them. Nothing. It is a pit. So if you, in fact, are able to invent something, just get it out there and use it, and don't advertise it. Just get it out there and use it. The word will spread. That's what I'm doing with my pendants. You can't patent these. Why would you want to patent something that is not nothing moves. Nothing moves in it. You don't turn it on and you cannot turn it off. So what is that? Okay, I know, but patenting something like that is the thing that does not enter my mind anymore, because it's not for the money, people. Money is your enemy. This is another reptilian ploy that's been around here since the Druid priest. I kid you not. It's that long that we, in fact, have been led down this pathway of darkness, and we're still on it. It was once called the Trail of Tears by the Indians. Now this is the Trail of Nightmares and Horrors. This is the pathway we're on. All I know is there's got to be some way around it. I'm an old motocross rider. I could find some way to get my big old fat knobby tire up on a fence post or something and get around this guy. That's what I'm looking for. Looking for somebody who wants to follow that too, because you can get around this. It just don't fall for their crap. It's linguistics. It's money. And look at every argument. Go to the pit of that argument. It's about the friggin' money. I don't care about your money. Don't care about your money. Yeah, we all need it right now, but there will be a day when that will be as a treacherous as of a word as the word technology will be. There will be no such thing as money. Reps.
Remove the money equation, and you remove all patents. That's
exactly.
Simple as that.
Exactly.
I'd like to remind the people listening to this this broadcast that Dr. Castle website is Castle Concepts with an S dot information solve, spelled SOLV .com, and you'll be able to find the drawing of this aperture that Dr. Castle just mentioned in the papers page of the website. And Dr. Castle, you mentioned that you would be willing to sell to the people who don't want to bother building those apertures, to sell kits.
Right.
Okay, so
it'll be the same type of construction model, but then again, it might in fact be just a zinc galvanized bucket. Zinc galvanized bucket, 3 to 5 pounds of magnetite, a copper pipe about 3 to 4 foot long. It's not important, but you can utilize that as well. There are no exacting ways of this, Jean-Francois. It's just that you need the principal elements there to do everything that you need. Zinc, just a very small amount of zinc. What does zinc do? Zinc tunes this frequency. It tunes this aperture. Aperture means focusing. That's what this is doing. This is focusing energy. It's not accumulating anything. That's why I've diversed and call mine an aperture, because it's focusing this energy field through the crystal. It is not accumulating anything. You don't need to accumulate. You're generating. You've got magnetite in the bottom. You're generating your own energy through field, through this, and in fact spinning it. That's all you're doing. And then the tree picks it up, and the tree amplifies it by a process that's very similar to gain. You ever heard of dB gain? It's the way antennas work. You can, in fact, increase its power output without significantly increasing its input.
Hmm.
Figure that out, and you're a better person than me. My brain can't even wrap around that concept, but that's what it does. But it goes to the root system as well as the branches all the way to the top. Something else that your listeners probably aren't aware of, that all crystals are constructed, the systems, identical to a tree. Crystals are alive when they're first mined. They're alive. And when you break a piece off or break these off, they start to slowly lose this energy field. I found out what the energy field is. But so much to the fashion that a Dr. Calkins on the West Coast, he also described what the energy was. He took some Mollusky magnetite, that's what he called it, the Mollusky's magnetite. He took these great big quartz crystals that he'd had around forever, and the equipment that he's working with, he's making armatures and things that work with electric, non-electric motors, but they're perpetual motion type systems. That's what he worked with.
Is that so? Whoa, that's interesting.
Well, but he said when he got these crystals didn't work right, and he knew that they just had a very low energy curve. So he took the crystal and stuck it down into the Mollusky magnetite, 1/3 of the total length. Just 1/3 of it was stuck into the magnetite. Within, there's that period again.
3 days.
3 days. They were completely charged as if they were brand spanking just harvested.
So natural,
there is something about natural energy.
So natural magnetic energy can be used to power non-stop motion motors or whatever you want to call them.
Right. Yeah. I'm working on luminosity. That's what I picked for myself. I'm working on it, and I know how to do it, but I can't say anything yet.
Oh my God, I'm still
trying to get this one little bacterium.
This is
I'm almost. I know I can do this. See, you don't do anything, but you invigorate these small bacteria that creates these lumens, naturally creates phosphorescence. If you put this into a natural magnetic energy field, they start reproducing like crazy. When do you think they generate the most light? During reproduction. It's amazing. You can create light using the magnetite in the crystal system to invigorate, because orgone energy and natural magnetic energy, we can debate it all day. I say it's the same thing. If that's true, orgone has been called the reproductive energy. It's what flutters out of the heart of not just humans, any living thing that reproduces to procreate. A flutter of orgone comes from the heart. That could be interpreted as a little bit of a magnetic energy field that comes from it. Flip it upside down.
It's amazing.
So, all these things are hooked together, Jean-Francois. That's what I'm saying. It's that simple. All these things are hooked together.
So I'm just thinking about...
We've been told it's too complicated to understand, and it's not.
I'm thinking about the practical applications here. It's limitless.
It is. We're creating a whole new dimension for the field of radionics. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
A whole different dimensional field of being able to use your mind and your heart at the same time. Here's what you need to do. Whenever you're thinking about that tree and you get this tornado that's coming right at you, it's 1 mile away. All you have to do is imagine the top of that tree, and this, as large as you can possibly imagine, there's a magnetic vortex that is coming out the top of that tree. And the time that you're thinking about it, it is there. As soon as that cone of depression hits that electromagnetic system, it in fact is going to neutralize it or deflect it completely away from your area. Now, well, if you're going to deflect it, well, it's going to hit somebody else. Well, they should have been paying attention, right?
Right.
It's going to hit somewhere, But you should have been paying attention. So if more people pay attention, we're not going to have any problems because we won't even have tornadoes coming into our area as we have around the metropolitan area of Columbus, Ohio, for at least 8 years that I know of. The year before I put my first aperture up, the year before that, we had a massive hailstorm that came through Columbus. Started in Hilliard and just dropped these golf ball size hailstones on the roofs. And, oh, man, the roofing people went crazy that year. Mexicans had just so much work they couldn't because they're the ones who could climb up on these roofs and fix these old houses. They're the only ones that had enough nerve to do that. It was amazing to see these men work. But see, that was good for the economy because everybody had to have a new roof, and we did too. See, and we got a thing of vinyl siding off of it as well, new vinyl siding, insurance paid for. But that was the year before I put the aperture up. We've not had a tornado enter the greater metropolitan area since then. For 10 miles radius from Mabel. Mabel is my ground zero.
As far as the tornadoes are concerned, did you notice an increase in, let's say, the past 8 years in and around Ohio? Did you notice an increase in the number of tornadoes or hailstorms?
Yes. Oh, yes. Here just, what was it, 3 weeks ago, we noticed, and I was still in Columbus at the time, and for the sake of not telling everything, my wife passed away March the 13th, and I was actually by her side, and she died of fast-track pancreatic cancer, and she didn't want to stay. That's all I can say. Bless her soul.
So sad for your loss.
Bless her soul. She was a wonderful person, and she was the love of my life, and she will always be. However, she understood what I was doing, and she knew of these things, but I can't talk for her, and she can't tell you what she felt. But I can say she knew that I always corrected people, and I would say, well, if you have a belief in that, no, people. Get rid of that linguistic training that you have and have a belief or believe in something. No, believe leaves it to chance. If you can replace it with the word faith. Faith, what's faith? The sun will come up tomorrow morning. That's faith. If we can start operating like that and get away from belief, we're not going to be confused by this stuff. We're not going to be confused by any of it. Because it's what is natural. And as I said before, Jean-Francois, natural magnetism is the primal energy of this planet. Is it the same as gravity? I don't know. I haven't got that far yet. It's got to be close, though, because natural eddies of magnetic vortices erupt from the Earth all the time in very unique places, and they seem to follow ley lines. And remember I said I want to get back to this going off into the atmosphere. If you make an aperture, I don't know what your listening audience knows about the collider, CERN collider.
Oh, yes, that project in Europe, yes.
They're trying to open up a hole. Well, actually, it's
already done.
It's called Hell's Gate.
Yeah, they already did.
They already did.
And they can't close it, and this is a big problem.
Well, they had a big problem in getting it running, and I figured that out the whole thing just by tipping my aperture 3 degrees further north and 3 degrees to the right, which pointed that vortice somewhere in the same general proximity as current magnetic north. This is the Earth's magnetic field, north. Just by doing that, what they were doing was they were projecting the CERN collider up into the atmosphere over the North Magnetic Pole, and they do that with the same type of workings that I described before, but based on electromagnetism and not natural magnetism. They have a very tight right particle spin. It's spun to the right. Right particle beam spins to the right. At the base of that, they had this same velocity left spin turn, but it was from a magnetic wave, from an electromagnetic wave. So you've got a counter-rotating spin pattern, and what I was doing was pointing this aperture in that direction that I just described a moment ago. This was taking this magnetic vortice, and if you can position yourself on Earth, if you look to the north, you're looking up and over. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
You're not on any flat plane. You're looking up and over. Okay, where you're pointing that thing is in the same vicinity and locale of the CERN collider particle beam and wave patterns. Okay, this enjoins the right particle beam perfectly. It enjoins that, and it speeds it up slightly. It speeds it up. Well, you've got this little left turn wave pattern back at the back here, counter-rotating, and it's got to move at exactly the same velocity in counter-rotation as the right spin rotation, or it won't open up Hell's Gate. If you keep a right magnetic spin, keeping it going faster, they can't get the gate open. And how many years did they bumfuddle with that thing trying to get it to work? I'm not taking credit for it. I know for certain, though, that there were people in Malaysia, there were people in the Philippines, as well as in New Zealand and over here in America that were doing the same thing at that same period of time, and they could not get that thing to open. And I don't know, but I took mine down because of some other problems we were having at home. And I don't know what happened to anybody else that they took theirs down and never checked. But some guy in Oregon named Chuckers, he would get on the internet and say, well, we got this and coming this way, and got this bad stuff coming that way. And he said, what should I do? Okay, I said, just take your wood chip and just put the chip up on the northwest quadrant of it, on the northwest corner, and he would just slightly tip that great big, huge, heavy copper aperture that he built, and it would change things. See, that's what we were doing. We were changing these magnetic vortices in where they're projected into the air, where this mass, energy without a mass goes into the air, these vortices. And they do the same thing every single time. They neutralize if they encounter electromagnetic coming from mesocyclonic waveform, an electromagnetic waveform. And with the CERN collider, I thought that was pretty unique. I had guessed exactly how to keep up Hell's Gate from opening, was to accelerating the right spin. See, you're not anti-anything. You're helping it. It's just the one in the backside, it won't work unless that's at the same exact velocity. Well, it can't speed up anymore. So anyways,
could a couple of aperture around the CERN facility, could a couple of these aperture close the gate? Or the
yes.
I
If
see.
you have one in Norway, and if you have one somewhere even east of that, Sweden, Finland, just two there. Take one, put one in Finland and one in Norway, Sweden. You could keep it closed forever. Because you're putting it in the projected pathway, something that you can't see. But it's an energy. Yes, it's invisible. And yes, it does speed things up. So anyways, see, these are things I'm just wanting to talk about enough to familiarize your listening audience to the things that we've never been told, the things that do exist. And yeah, I went through all that academia stuff, and I wouldn't give you a dime for it. But what I've taught myself is even more critically important, because it's all these ancient methodologies. That's what I've come across. I just figured out how to use them by using natural vortices. Vortexes. It's kind of hard to say vortexes and vortices. But all these things, in fact, are based on this one principal concept of using magnetite and auric energy being spun up into a crystal and erupting into a large magnetic vortex. That's all there is. Now we know so much more about if you take two crystals and you, in fact, counteroppose them, and you wrap them the same way, but you mount them upside down to each other, you have a vortex coming off one end, you got a vortex going down the other end, and you're right in the middle of it. But this constantly floods the hippocampus region of your brain with this natural magnetic energy. People that have had acute sinus problems have all expressed a great relief from that. Mastoid sinus cavity infections, or even some people report noises coming from their sinuses. I guess they're so swelled up and puffy that they make noises. Well, the pendant took it away. The pendant took those things away, whatever those were. But it just makes everything work at a more natural cadence.
Oh, yeah, cadence.
A pace. I think it's cadence. It's one of the first things you notice is that all of a sudden you don't slow down, but you just think, I'm tired of this pace, and you just slow down a little bit. It's all you got to do. If you don't, you won't be able to smell the roses.
No, this is such a nice sentence. I really love it. I'd like to remind the people to visit Dr. Castle's website at castleconcepts.informationsolve, spelled SOLV.com, and please to make sure to visit the pendants page and the papers page, and there's also a media page. You can see other interviews of Dr. Mike at other internet radio stations. It's really a fascinating website with a lot of information, and you can learn a lot of great stuff. Well, to wrap it up, I'll leave you the last word, Mike.
Okay. Healing is about what you expect your dog to do at your feet. Healing. Okay? Mm-hmm. Curing is what rubber does, creating polysulfidec crosslinks, sulfidec bonding crosslinks. Okay? That's what curing is, curing rubber. I don't do or proclaim either one, but I can reverse the heck out of something, and that's what I'm up to. That's what I'm doing. And I just hope that you will keep tuned in and just go along with this, because just pass this methodology along to somebody else. Don't necessarily charge them a bunch of money. Try to keep money out of it if you can. To be reimbursed for what you got into it, certainly. That's acceptable. Just don't get into this reptilian marketing gouging crap. Mm-hmm. I can't stand that. It makes my skin crawl. But it's natural. See, if you want to give somebody something, give them the ability to attract wild birds back to their parking, back to their yard, their backyard. Attract bees, attract wild raccoons, attract hawks, like I did, to your backyard. And I live in a ghetto. I'm a yellowtail hawk. And my wife had taken a photograph of it. She was so proud of that, and she knew that it was that aperture that brought them there. Because I told her the year before that, I said, no, it attracts wild things. And the Canadian geese would always take a corridor and go straight north from our house, because this goes very strongly on a polarity plane north. Anyways, I've enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to doing it again. We'll have another installment, and I'll keep working on this paper, but I want to make the paper so you don't have to be a college graduate or mathematics I don't like that stuff, people. I don't like that stuff. That's not natural, human, made in his image kind talk. Mm-hmm. That's jabberwocky. That's mesmeric spell. That's formulas. I don't care if I ever understand that crap, because that's exactly what it is. Jean-Francois, you have yourself a blessed week, and thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you very much for your presence today, Dr. Castle, and blessings your way.
Blessings your way. Good night.
Bye-bye.